Horror rules aren't written down anywhere. You don't learn them in school, and there's no safety poster on the wall that says them out loud. You learn them the hard way, usually too late, in that thin, ugly stretch of time between midnight and dawn, when the streets are empty and the world feels wrong. The first horror rule I ever learned was simple. Never walk home after midnight. Not try not to, not be careful, not text a friend. Just don't. I didn't make that up. That rule was handed to me in 3 different ways, by 3 different nights, in 3 different places. One of them happened to me. 2 of them happened to people who told me their stories with shaking voices and eyes that kept drifting to dark windows while they talked. If you're the kind of person who walks home with your headphones in or cuts through quiet parking lots because it's just 5 minutes, these 3 stories might sound like warnings, or they might sound like something else. Either way, if you're listening to this alone in the dark, go ahead and like this video and subscribe now, before you forget. This won't make you feel safer, and you might want to reason come back tomorrow when the streets are bright again, because after tonight, you might think twice about walking anywhere after midnight. The first story comes from a guy I used to work with when I was still doing night shifts. He never liked talking about that night. When he finally did, he didn't smile once. He just stared at the floor and told it like he was reading from a police report that never got filed. This happened a couple of years ago when he was in his early 20s, walking home from a closing shift at a bar downtown. He wasn't drunk, just exhausted. He'd been working doubles for weeks, chasing tips and trying to keep up with rent. It was a Tuesday night, rolling into Wednesday morning, just past 1 a.m. The city still had a heartbeat, distant sirens, a couple late buses, the occasional car. But for the most part, the streets were empty, the kind of empty that makes your footsteps sound too loud. He usually took the same route home. 3 blocks down the main road, past a laundromat and a 24-hour donut shop, then a left onto a quieter residential street lined with trees and old brick apartment buildings. It wasn't the shortest route, but it was the one he knew, the one that felt like routine. That night, though, he cut it too close. His co-worker had offered him a ride. He'd said no like he always did. "It's only 15 minutes, he'd said. "I'll walk. I need the air." He didn't know yet that sometimes the air is exactly what's watching you, because after the night, you might think twice about walking anywhere after midnight. The first story comes from a guy I used to work with when I was still doing night shifts. He never liked talking about that night. When he finally did, he didn't smile once. He just stared at the floor and told it like he was reading from a police report that never got filed. This happened a couple of years ago when he was in his early 20s, walking home from a closing shift at a bar downtown. He wasn't drunk, just exhausted. He'd been working doubles for weeks, chasing tips and trying to keep up with rent. It was a Tuesday night, rolling into Wednesday morning, just past 1 a.m. The city still had a heartbeat, distant sirens, a couple late buses, the occasional car. But for the most part, the streets were empty, the kind of empty that makes your footsteps sound too loud. He usually took the same route home. 3 blocks down the main road, past a laundromat and a 24-hour donut shop, then a left onto a quieter residential street lined with trees and old brick apartment buildings. It wasn't the shortest route, but it was the one he knew, the one that felt like routine. That night, though, he cut it too close. His co-worker had offered him a ride. He'd said no like he always did. "It's only 15 minutes, he'd said. "I'll walk. I need the air." He didn't know yet that sometimes the air is exactly what's watching you. He left the bar with his backpack slung over one shoulder and his apron stuffed inside. The neon sign flickered behind him as the door locked, bathing the sidewalk in a tired red light. He checked his phone. 1:07 a.m. No unread messages. No new notifications. Just the glow of the screen and the little battery icon dipping below 30%. He put his phone back in his pocket without putting music on for once. He still doesn't know why. Maybe some part of him already knew. He crossed the main street with the walk signal and started down his usual path. The first few minutes were uneventful. The air was cool, almost pleasant, and the distant hum of traffic on the highway filled the silence. Then he turned off the main road. The side street was darker than usual. One of the overhead lamps had burned out, leaving a gap of deeper shadow between pools of orange light. The apartment windows were mostly black, curtains drawn, blinds lowered. A single TV flickered blue behind a thin curtain in one window on the second floor, but no faces were visible. He told himself it was fine. He'd walked this street 100 times before. Nothing had ever happened. That's the lie everyone tells themselves, right up until something does. Halfway down the block, he heard it. Footsteps. Not his, not an echo. Someone else's. They were behind him. Not close enough to be right on top of him, but close enough that they weren't just random. A steady rhythm, heel to toe, not hurried, not hesitant. Just there. He told himself not to look back. He'd heard that advice before somewhere. Don't make eye contact. Don't let them know you're afraid. Just keep walking. But the footsteps kept matching his pace, and curiosity is louder than fear, right up until it isn't. He glanced over his shoulder. At first, all he saw was shadow. Then, under the next working streetlight, the shape came into focus. A man in a dark hoodie, hands in his pockets, head down. Normal size, normal build. Normal enough to be forgettable, except for one thing. He hadn't been there a minute ago. There was nowhere he could have stepped out from. No alley, no parked car to hide behind, no door swinging shut. Just the empty sidewalk, and then him. He turned his head back and picked up his pace. The footsteps behind him picked up too. Not by much, but enough that he noticed. Enough that every hair on his arm stood on end. He reached into his pocket and wrapped his fingers around his phone like it was a weapon. He considered calling someone, anyone, but he knew what that would sound like. Hey, I'm being followed by a guy who might just be going the same way as me. Nobody takes that seriously until it's too late. The footsteps got closer. He crossed the street earlier than usual, cutting diagonally to the other side, pretending it was just to avoid a puddle he didn't want to step in. He could hear the man's shoes scrape the asphalt as he crossed too. No more pretending. There was an alley up ahead between two apartment buildings. It led to a parallel street, one that was better lit, and had a 24-hour pharmacy on the corner. He'd never taken it before, not this late. It always felt like a shortcut for people who liked risks. Tonight, standing in that growing bubble of panic, it felt like his only option. He veered left into the alley, heart pounding, telling himself he was being smart, not stupid. The alley smelled like garbage and stale beer. There was a single security light halfway down, buzzing faintly, throwing out a sick yellow halo. He walked faster. Behind him, the footsteps broke into a jog. He didn't have to look back this time. He could hear it. The slap of soles on concrete, the soft echo of someone closing in. He ran. His backpack slammed against his spine with every stride, his breathing loud in his ears. The alley stretched ahead of him like it was getting longer instead of shorter. The security light flickered once, then went out completely, plunging him into darkness. He heard the man's voice for the first time. "You shouldn't have turned here," it said. Calm, too calm, like this was an appointment they'd both forgotten to put in their calendars. He didn't answer. He just ran harder, arms pumping, lungs burning. He could feel the man gaining on him. Footsteps closer, 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 until his toe caught on something. A crack in the pavement, a loose stone. He never found out. He pitched forward, hands scraping ground, knees burning as they met concrete. He tried to scramble back up, but there was already a shadow falling across him. Fabric rustling, the smell of sweat and something else, something sour and metallic. A hand closed around his shoulder. He always swears this part took less than a second, even though it feels like a slow-motion replay in his head. The grip was strong, fingers digging into muscle, thumb pressing against the bone. He thought, this is it. This is how I die, in an alley that smells like trash, because I didn't want to ask for a ride. Then, all at once, the hand let go. Headlights flooded the alley from the far end. A car engine revved, tires screeching slightly as someone pulled into the opening and leaned on the horn. "Hey!" a voice shouted. A woman's voice. Angry, confused, very, very awake. The man in the hoodie stepped back, turning his head toward the light. For a split second, the beam caught his face. My co-worker said he can't really describe it. Not clearly. Just pale skin, dark eyes that looked wrong somehow, like they were too deep or too flat. A mouth that never quite closed, teeth just barely visible. Then, as the car started to pull forward, the man did something else that burned itself into memory. He smiled at my co-worker, not threatened, not panicked, just disappointed. "You're lucky," he said softly. "You're not supposed to have witnesses." Then he turned and walked further down the alley, into the dark. By the time the car reached my co-worker and the driver leaned out to ask if he was okay, the man was gone. He limped the rest of the way home that night. He doesn't walk anywhere after midnight anymore. He still works late, but now he calls a cab or gets that co-worker to give him a ride or just sleeps on someone's couch. The 15-minute walk isn't worth the feeling of a hand that let go only because of headlights. That was the first story that made me take the rule seriously. The second one came from someone who thought the rule didn't apply to quiet neighborhoods. She lived in a small town, one of those places where the biggest excitement is a new chain restaurant opening near the highway. She worked a closing shift at a diner that sat right on the edge of town, surrounded by fields that turned into black sheets after sundown. Most nights, she got a ride home with one of the cooks, or her manager dropped her at her driveway on their way out. But one week, everybody's schedules got shuffled. She ended up closing with a new hire who didn't have a car, and her manager's truck broke down the day before. "It's fine," she'd said when they were counting down the drawers. "It's only a 25-minute walk. I do it sometimes in the afternoon. No big deal." Her manager had frowned. "Not this late, you don't. I can call you a cab." She'd wave him off. Money was tight. The thought of paying for a taxi to drive her down streets she'd grown up on felt ridiculous. She stepped out of the diner a little after 12:30 a.m., apron stuffed into her bag, hair still smelling faintly of grease and coffee. The building lights clicked out behind her with a final, heavy thunk, leaving only the sign out front buzzing neon red and blue against the night. The road home was simple. Straight out from the diner, past a few dark houses and a boarded-up gas station, then right at the old oak tree, down a long residential street that eventually curved toward her street. She'd walked parts of it during the day 1,000 times. It was boring, familiar, safe. She kept to the shoulder, hands in her jacket pockets, watching her breath drift in faint clouds. The night was clear and moonless. The stars looked sharp enough to cut herself on. For the first 10 minutes, everything felt normal. Crickets chirped from the roadside ditches. A dog barked twice in the distance, then went quiet again. A lone car passed in the other direction, its headlights sweeping across her and then disappearing as it turned toward the highway ramp. Then she started to notice something. Another pair of headlights, way back behind her. At first, she didn't think anything of it. A car leaving a driveway. Someone heading home late. But the light stayed behind her, just far enough that she couldn't make out the make or color. Just two pale orbs smudging the darkness. She walked a little faster. The headlights matched her pace. She tried to be rational. The car was on the road. She was on the shoulder. They were going the same direction. That was it. That was all. She told herself that right up until the point where she stepped aside to let the vehicle pass. It didn't. She heard the engine idling, a low murmur rolling across the quiet fields. The lights stayed where they were, hovering at that same distance, too close to be an accident and too far to force a confrontation. She turned the corner at the oak tree. The lights turned too. The houses along that street were old, most of them set back from the road with deep front lawns and heavy trees. A few porch lights were on, but most windows were dark. She thought about cutting through one of the yards, knocking on a stranger's door and asking for help. But what would she say? There's a car behind me on a road where cars belong. She told herself again she was being dramatic. The car agreed. It crept closer. She could hear the engine more clearly now, a faint irregular click in the idle, like it needed work. The headlights grew brighter, edges sharpening around her shadow. Her legs wanted to run, but she didn't want to look like prey. She waited until she reached a bend in the road, where one of the driveways dipped down into a short gravel lane toward a detached garage. Then, without giving herself time to think, she stepped off the asphalt and pretended to adjust her shoe. The car had no choice but to pass her. It rolled by slowly, tires whispering on the road. For a moment, the driver's window was parallel with her. She didn't mean to look inside. She told me that part carefully, like she was confessing a mistake she couldn't take back. She just glanced. The car was an older model sedan. The window was down halfway. She expected to catch a glimpse of a face, hands on the steering wheel, something human to tie all this to. Instead, she saw an empty driver's seat. She thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Maybe the angle was strange, or the light behind her was reflecting wrong. But the interior was lit just enough for her to see the details. Torn fabric on the seat, cracked vinyl on the dash, air freshener hanging from a mirror. No hands, no head, no one. The steering wheel turned itself a fraction of an inch as the car drifted past, correcting its path, like an invisible driver was making micro-adjustments. She stayed frozen on the gravel, heart in her throat. The car moved another 10, 15 feet forward, then slowed. The brake lights flared red. It stopped. The reverse lights came on. She didn't wait to see any more. She bolted across the front lawn of the nearest house, lungs burning, shoes slipping on dew-wet grass. She didn't care if she woke anyone up. She just ran straight for the front door and started pounding on it with both fists. Behind her, on the road, she heard the crunch of tires, the whine of an engine shifting gears. Slow at first, then faster. By the time someone's porch light flicked on and a sleepy voice called to the door, "Hello?" the car was gone again. She explained what she'd seen in frantic bursts. The man who answered, a middle-aged guy in a bathrobe with tired eyes and wary suspicion, listened long enough to hear car and following and please, then opened the door wider and wave her inside. His wife called the police while she sat on their couch, shaking, staring through their living room window at the slice of road she could see. When a patrol car arrived 15 minutes later, the officer took her statement and drove her home himself, lights off, rolling down the street slow. "You're not the first person to say something like that," he admitted quietly when they pulled up to her house. "We've had a few calls in the last couple of years. Maybe kids playing games, maybe something else." But he paused and added, "You did the right thing not staying on the road." After that, she stopped walking home. Completely. Even in the afternoon, even if it meant waiting an hour for someone to get off work and pick her up. When she quit that job a year later, she still didn't like driving that stretch at night. She said that sometimes, when she glanced in her rearview mirror coming home from somewhere else, she'd see headlights just a little too far back, just a little too steady. She never waited to find out how long they stayed there. 2 stories, 2 different people. Same rules scratching at the edge of them. Don't walk home after midnight. Don't trust the roads when everyone else is asleep. The 3rd story is mine. It didn't happen in an alley or on a country road. It happened in a place that was supposed to be safe, a corporate parking lot, under bright lights, with security cameras watching and a guard at the front desk who knew my name. I work a 9 to 5 job that regularly turns into a 9 to 7, the kind of job where your eyes feel like sandpaper by the time you shut your computer down. Data analysis, logistics, numbers on screens representing boxes on trucks that will never mean anything to you beyond deadlines and spreadsheets. Our office complex sits on the edge of town in one of those sprawling business parks that look cloned from each other. Low, wide buildings, manicured grass, identical trees, and, most importantly, an ocean of asphalt between the front doors and the main road. During the day, it's busy, people coming and going, buses dropping off, cars squeezing into 2 small spaces. At night, It's a void with light poles. The first time it happened, it was late autumn, the kind of night where the cold feels thin and sharp, and you can see your breath under the parking lot lamps. I'd stayed late to finish a report I'd already rewritten twice. By the time I sent it, everyone else in my department had gone home. The only person left on our floor was the cleaning staff, their muffled vacuum sounds drifting in from another hallway. I shut down my computer, packed my bag, and turned out the light in my office. The sudden darkness was jarring. Only the green exit sign at the end of the hall glowed, casting a sickly, diluted color over the carpet. The walk to the lobby always feels longer when you're the last one out. Every door you pass is a rectangle of black. Every window reflects you back at yourself like a stranger staring. Our night security guard, an older guy named Sam with a crossword always half-finished in front of him, looked up as I approached. "Working late again?" he asked, the same way he always did. "Yeah," I said. "Report stuff. You know how it is." "Not for me," he grinned. "My report is how many cups of coffee I can drink without my heart exploding. Be safe out there." I smiled back, waved, and pushed through the glass doors. The quiet outside hit me like a physical thing. The sky was a thick, starless black. The tall sodium lamps hummed overhead, each one casting a circle of orange light on the pavement below. The rows of cars were broken up by long stretches of emptiness. Most everyone had gone home. Only a few vehicles remained. Overnight fleet cars, a couple late worker sedans, a truck near the far end of the lot. I realized, with a small stab of annoyance, that I couldn't remember exactly where I'd parked that morning. The section I usually use had been full when I'd arrived, so I'd pulled into another, D or maybe E. I clicked the unlock button on my key fob, but nothing flashed. Too far. I started walking. There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from walking through a place designed for crowds when no one else is there. Every sound feels magnified. The soft crunch of your shoes on grit, the faint buzz of the lights, the whisper of wind pushing a stray fast food cup along the ground. I tried the key fob again. This time, a faint chirp answered me from 2 rows over and maybe 50 yards down. My car's headlights blinked briefly, then went dark again. Relief washed over me. There, found, problem solved. I picked up my pace. My bag thumped against my hip. I thought about the drive home, the shower, the chance to finally stop thinking. I got to my car and wrapped my hand around the driver's side handle, thumb hovering over the unlock button. And then, for no logical reason at all, I stopped. It was like someone had grabbed the back of my neck. Not physically, just that feeling, that sudden gut punch instinct that something is wrong, and you are in exactly the wrong place to be realizing it. My rational brain rolled its eyes. "You're tired," it said. "You're spooked by empty parking lots because you watch too many horror channels and listen to too many stories about rules you're supposed to follow. Just get in the car and go home." The rest of me wasn't convinced. My hand slid off the handle. I straightened up, slowly, like I was moving through water. I turned around. He was right there, not 20 feet away, not across the aisle, not lurking behind a pillar. He was standing so close that if I'd taken one step back, I would have stumbled into him. 6 inches, maybe less. He was turning toward me at the exact same moment I was turning toward him, like we'd rehearsed it. For a heartbeat, we were perfectly aligned, face to face. Eye to eye. I didn't scream. I didn't have time to. The sound got stuck somewhere between my lungs and my throat. He wasn't tall or broad or dramatic, just average, medium height, thin, gray hoodie, the kind you can buy in any store. Dark hair that probably hadn't seen a comb in a while. What made it wrong wasn't what he looked like. It was the way he was looking. His eyes weren't really looking at me. They were looking through me, like I was something on the other side of a glass tank. There was no flicker of surprise or embarrassment. No, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." He was just there, waiting. The smell hit me a second later. Not overwhelming, but distinct. Sweat, unwashed clothes, something sour under it all. We stood like that for what felt like a minute, but was probably less than a second. My brain scrambled to catch up, flipping through all the normal explanations it could find. and throwing them out one by one. He hadn't been in front of me when I walked up to the car. I would have seen him. I didn't hear footsteps behind me. No keys jangling. No car doors closing. Just nothing. And then him. As my adrenaline surged, my senses sharpened. I noticed tiny details. The way his jaw was clenched tight enough to make a little muscle jump near his ear. The way his hands hung loose at his sides. Fingers relaxed, like he was waiting for me to move first. Our eyes locked, and I saw something change. For a split second, his blank stare flickered. Confusion. Annoyance. Like he'd been expecting me to do something else. Like my turning around when I had messed up a script he'd already written. Then, without a word, he broke eye contact. He turned sharply to his left and started walking away. Not fast, not a panic retreat. Just a steady, deliberate pace, cutting between two cars and heading toward another row. I didn't call out. I didn't ask who he was or what he was doing. I just stood there, heart hammering against my ribs, so hard I could feel in my wrists. I did not get in my car. I ran. I grabbed my bag off the ground where I'd apparently dropped it and sprinted back toward the building, every instinct screaming at me not to look back. The automatic doors slid open for me just in time. I almost crashed into Sam's desk. He jumped, coffee sloshing in his cup. Hey, easy, what's going on? It took me a minute to get the words out. When I did, they spilled like broken glass. Man in the lot, right by my car. Didn't hear him. He was just there. Sam listened, his friendly expression fading into something more serious. Did he say anything? He asked. No, I said. He just stared, and then walked away when I turned around. Like he didn't like that I saw him. Sam frowned. I'll call it in, he said, and I'll walk you out myself later when the cops come. You did the right thing coming back inside. I didn't feel like I'd done anything at all. I just listened to a screaming instinct that I still couldn't justify with logic. The police came. They drove through the lot with their spotlights, checked the camera feeds, made the usual reassuring noises. They found nothing. For a while, I told myself he was probably just some weird guy passing through. Maybe someone cutting through the lot. Maybe someone as startled by the encounter as I was. I believed that right up until the second night. About a month later, another crisis at work kept us late. The kind of issue that sends emails flying and keeps managers hunched over conference tables. By the time things calmed down enough for anybody to leave, it was a little past 9 p.m. I walked out with two people from IT. We chatted in that exhausted, jittery way people do after long days. At the edge of Section B, they waved and split off toward their car. You sure you're good from here? One of them asked. Yeah, I lied. I'm in D. I'll be fine. The parking lot was a little less empty than last time. A few extra cars. A couple of lights flickering instead of one. It didn't matter. The farther I got from the building, the louder my heartbeat felt. I saw my car from a distance this time, and I saw him before he saw me. Someone was standing next to the driver's side door. Same gray hoodie, same thin frame. His back was to me. His hand was on my door handle, tugging, releasing, tugging again in a slow, frustrating rhythm, like he'd been doing it for a while. All the doubts I tried to stack between myself and that first night fell apart in an instant. He hadn't just been walking by. He hadn't just startled me. He'd been waiting. For me. For my car. For this. I must have made some kind of sound. A gasp. A shift of my shoes on asphalt. Something soft but out of place in that wide silence. He froze. Slowly, he turned his head. Not all the way at first. Just enough that one eye, then the other, came into view when his gaze locked on me across the stretch of parking lot. The look on his face wasn't fear. It was rage. Hot, bright, and shockingly naked. Like I'd ruined something important to him by seeing him too soon. Like I'd broken the rules of whatever game he thought we were playing. His hand left the door handle and slid into the pocket of his hoodie. When it came out, it was holding a knife. It wasn't big. For inches, maybe. The kind you can buy at a hardware store. But under the orange parking lot light, the blade gleamed like it already knew what it wanted. He started running. He didn't shout. He didn't say a word. He just sprinted straight at me, knife held low, legs pumping, his face locked into that furious, focused expression. I didn't think. I didn't weigh options. I didn't remember the nearest exit route or the location of the cameras or the fact that I could theoretically run back toward the building. I turned and ran toward the road. My bag hit the ground behind me. I left it. I ran through the rows, cutting between cars, heading for the main access road that led out of the park. My lungs felt like they were tearing. My shoes slapped the ground in panic rhythm. His footsteps were behind me, fast, closer than I wanted them to be. The image of that knife kept flashing in my mind, in time with my heartbeat. I burst out a lot and onto the access road just as a pair of headlights swung around the curve. I don't believe in clean coincidences anymore, but that's what it looked like. A patrol car mid-route, hood ornament catching the light, grille flashing for a second as the driver registered a person in the road, waving their arms and screaming. The car screeched to a halt. One officer got out, hand going instinctively to his sidearm. "There's a man with a knife," I gasped, pointing back toward the lot. My chest burned. My legs shook so hard I thought they'd give out. The officer's expression changed in an instant. He motioned for his partner to stay with me, then started toward the parking lot at a cautious jog, flashlight and free hand sweeping the shadows. They didn't find him. They checked my car. The door was still locked. No signs of forced entry. They checked the cameras. Grainy footage showed a hooded figure near my car, then me in the distance, then both of us running in opposite directions. His face was never clear. Probably some messed up guy drifting through. One of the officers said, "We'll increase patrols out here for a bit. In the meantime, try not to walk alone this late if you can help it, okay?" I nodded. I don't think I said anything else. I stopped working late after that. If I couldn't avoid it, I left only when someone else did and asked them to walk with me. I started parking closer to the building. I made a point of never being the last one out. For weeks afterward, I found myself instinctively scanning the lot every time I walked toward it, looking for that gray hoodie, that stance, those eyes. I never saw him again. Sometimes I tell myself he got arrested somewhere else, or overdosed, or moved on to another city. Some piece of my mind tries to file him into a category I can understand. Human danger, flesh and blood threat, something the world knows how to deal with, even if it fails more often than it should. Other nights, when I'm honest with myself, I remember how the first time he was just there, how I never heard him come up behind me, how he seemed genuinely annoyed that I'd turn around before he was ready. And I wonder if he wasn't my danger at all. Maybe I was his mistake. A route he tried twice and then abandoned because the rule is the same for both sides. Never walk home after midnight. If you're alone, you're easy. If you're predictable, you're easy. If you're tired and distracted and you think, it's only 15 minutes, you're easy. People like to think that what's out there after midnight is the same as what's out there during the day, just darker. Same streets, same corners, same empty lots. It isn't. Ask the bartender who chose the alley. Ask the waitress who followed the road. Ask me. Staring at a car I don't get into anymore unless there are other people walking beside me. Or don't ask any of us. Just remember the rule. Never walk home after midnight. If this reached you at the wrong time, if you're listening to this with your shoes already on and your keys already in your hand, maybe wait a little. Call a ride. Text someone. Sit in the lobby until the sky starts to turn gray. Because once you know these stories, once you've heard the rules, the worst thing you can do is ignore them. And if you want to hear more horror rules you were never supposed to find out about, like this video and subscribe to Dark Signal. You don't want to learn the next one the hard way.